Well, hello everyone. We are starting this new series for Financial Literacy Month. You may have seen my coworker Lauren talking to her friend and business owner Adrian. I think that was 2 weeks ago. And this is our second session of this. We just kind of want to lift up some folks that we work with, talk about the importance of financial literacy, and I'm kind of viewing this as we're going to go through. Tony will introduce himself in a second. We'll kind of go through his like story from just being interested in audio as in being like a hobby to now running a successful business doing it, and how working with us and just learning about finances kind of made that possible. My name is Evan. I'm the accounting supervisor at Mitchell Consulting. I've been here for like almost 8 years now, which is kind of wild. But I've been like in the background, so now I'm here. I am live on the Facebook. We're making moves. Want to give a little introduction, Tony?
Yeah, hello. I am Tony Mitchell, and I am the CEO, head of production at Texture House Sound and Visuals, where we make audio, video content for a wide range of like mediums, from TV to film to just audible listening devices, things like music and podcasts and all of the above. So if it like has anything to do with like video and audio, we probably do it. Um, Lately, we've been working on a documentary and a few short films. Like that's our current list of projects, and we started a new thing called Company Stories this year, where we're kind of taking a different approach on like the commercial branding video for companies and more telling stories about why people do the work and how they impact their communities. So that's kind of what Texture House is, and that's my life at this point. I started Texture House in 2020 with my partner or business partner Paul Shadig, and in 2020, last year, or what was that, 2023, we brought on Angel Andrews as our head of video production and brought her on as a partner, and we kind of have been hitting full strides since then. We got like right after that, we got the documentary, and then we did a big music video last year, and actually ended up recently winning the Michigan Music Video Awards for best R&B and soul music video.
Awesome.
So yeah, so
I was
that,
afraid you were gonna blow past that. I was like, hold on.
yeah,
You
yeah. I gotta keep reminding that I gotta say stuff like that. I was also a finalist in the LA Music Video Awards,
let's go
which
for the same video.
same video. Yep.
Awesome.
Um, yeah, so I gotta keep telling people that I do things, which I'm getting better at it. So this is me
It's
doing it.
hard sometimes.
It is hard.
But I mean,
Also,
we made this. Sorry, go on. I'll say it
no,
after.
what were you gonna say?
I'd say we just got this space to like highlight you. So
Yeah,
like now as good a time as ever.
yeah. So I also wanted to say that me and Evan used to work together back in college at Wider, and one of our friends like messaged me on Instagram, and after I posted about this, and they were like, "The old team is back together."
Oh,
So
we're all grown up now.
we are all grown up now. But yeah, Evan used to be the business director, and then he left, and then I took over the business director job there, and then you came back as the production director for
What's the production
program,
director?
yeah,
Gee,
program director, and then we worked together for a little bit. So full
yes,
circle.
past.
Yeah. hmm
Um, awesome. It's nice to hear you list everything out because you're like, yeah, like you said, you don't often do that. Um, yeah, so I don't know. Maybe let's. I mean, I've known you personally for a while, but like audio visual has kind of always been a thing I've known you to be into.
hmm
Did you ever see this being? I mean, I'm sure you maybe thought of it as like a career in some ways, but like, did you have a specific idea of what that would look like, or was it? Did you anticipate starting your own business doing it, or did you sort of just have an ambiguous like, I'd like to work in that industry?
Yeah, it was definitely an ambiguous. I knew I was always gonna be in like the film and audio world. I guess I just never knew what direction I was gonna go in. I think if it wasn't for COVID, I probably would have started working at a company.
Hmm.
But because of lockdown and how just like life happened, Texture House was just born out of helping and providing service to like clients that I had already like made connections with prior to COVID, and then once it like lockdown happened and like stuff like StreamYard, like really like during COVID, I was like running StreamYards for people. I was editing videos and doing like post production sound like cleanup and stuff. It was a lot of like cleanup because people were recording in their houses with their laptops and like they're like, I can't. This is just not good enough to send to people or blah blah blah.
Hmm.
So yeah, during 2020, June 2020, we started Texture House, and it kind of has changed and grown in a lot of different ways from there. I think in like 2021, we started when things kind of opened up a little bit. We started doing production work for like sound on production work, sound recording and stuff for um, a lot of other companies in Southwest Michigan and stuff. And then it kind of like after that, we realized maybe we should get into video stuff, more into video stuff because
Hmm.
I think that was something I always wanted to do. And we actually got our one of our first bigger clients, People Spark, one of your peeps. Um, we connected with them, and they that was kind of like the launching path of like, oh, I guess we can do video. Okay, not only am I audio person, I'm also a video person.
Hmm.
Um, but like the in terms of like being a business owner, that kind of just like happened as like a necessity to like do what I wanted to do. Um,
Totally.
and I think probably in the past 2 years, that has become more of, like, my reality of, like, especially now, like, now I probably dedicate, like, half of my work hours to, like, running the business,
Hmm.
and, like, gaining new clients or doing, like, accounting or payroll or, just back end SOP work or,
Totally.
trying to grow towards the future and stuff, or just, like, maintain in the moment. So yeah.
Definitely.
Mhm.
I feel like with the industry that you're into, it's like I don't know. There's just such a notion of like I guess I don't have a better phrase other than the quote unquote like selling out, where
Mhm.
it's like people don't want to take a more formalized approach. But I don't know. But like you said, like you were kind of already doing the work and had a passion for it, and then you inevitably arrive at a point where you're like, well, if I want to do this to sustain myself, if I want to do this and not have to have a job in addition to it, then I have to like start taking those like practical steps to like making it a business.
Yeah. And it was
Um,
I mean, the thing though too is like, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs kind of can relate to this, but it was a very natural progression. It wasn't like it was like one day I woke up and it was like now I have this business and like 3 employees. It was like every day was a step closer to where I'm at now.
mhm.
So, that growth, it never felt like I never got blindsided by anything. Like every time I was making a move to like even like we were talking before this is like I applied for a loan last year and I got the loan. Like when I got to that point, it was like I needed to grow the business so that we could do more because like people wanted more out of us and like I wanted more out of like this company.
Mhm.
Um, which then turned inwards and was like, okay, I guess I'm a business owner. I guess I'm a CEO. And then I had to do a lot of like self reflection and like contemplation on like what that actually means to me. So
Mhm.
like I don't think it really is like selling. Like I'm sure people do sell out, but I feel like that's more of like immediate, like a social media thing. But the reality of it is like you just have to have systems in place to like work at a certain level. And if that comes off as selling out, maybe I think that's just like a hashtag more than it is like what the reality of that
Definitely.
is.
Yeah, and that wasn't to say that like I thought you had like gone into that space. It was more like I just think with like an industry that like a creative industry like the one you're in, it's very easy to like once money becomes involved, people sort of it just makes the space different.
Correct.
But like what you said, it's like all these things you're doing are just ultimately setting you up to be able to like have an artistic endeavor like for your life and not have
Correct.
it sit in the background as like a hobby or something that you have to do after you're clocking out of a day job or something like that.
Yeah. And at a certain level too, it's like all artists, once you get to that professional level, like everyone's doing the same, like everyone has the same systems. Everyone has to do their accounting because we all have to pay the government. Like we all have to like pay taxes, and like that's the point of accounting really, is like you have your books together so that you can pay your taxes and not get audited. But also, having your books together helps you understand like how much you need to charge people for the work that you're doing, and that's like a whole other conversation.
Totally.
Like figuring out how to charge for like making art for people.
Hmm.
But like people have been doing it for years. Like that's not a new concept.
Totally, totally. And I do. I also want to like kind of highlight what you were saying before is what I've found. People that am typically happier and more inclined to work with, and like we kind of have this kind of clientele at Mitchell Consulting too, is like more people that basically. I mean, so like our like tag that we're always using is like passion to profit,
Hmm.
which is like because most of the folks that we're working with, you are a good example of like you're already doing this work. It's not like one day you're like, hey, I want to be a business owner. What if I tried doing audio video? It was like, I enjoy these things. I'm good at these things. And like suddenly you kind of find yourself, you're doing them already. And you're like, I guess I have to formalize this now.
Correct.
And I think that like the, the like business side and doing all of the like admin and like less like creative stuff, like those are skills I think that you can learn
Hmm.
and can be like taught, and you can start to pick up on those. But like what can't be taught is just like having like a passion for doing the kind of work that you do.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of the best place to start, is like being really stoked on the subject matter or the service that you're providing, and then sort of like learning how to do that more efficiently, do it in a way that like pays your bills and that you can sort of like uplift your community too.
Yeah. And like the quality of like the quality and like the type of clients you get at those different levels, there are always, at least for me, they've always met me at where I was at. And like there's been no like cognizant, I guess there have been times where there was some cognizant dissonance, but like is mostly on my end, not their end. Um so yeah, I guess I don't know where I was going with that,
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's cool too because like as I even just say, I mean now like Mitchell Consulting is let's see, there's 5 of us total.
but
I was around when it was just like two. It was just 2 of us.
hmm.
Um, and I don't know. It's just nice to be able to have to start as a small business, and rather than like working for a company, is like you have direct control over like what the team's going to look like, what kind of clients you want to work with.
Hmm.
So you sort of are in a position where like all the things that can be a little draining and sometimes pull people away from like formalizing like a passion or something and turning it into a career, you have control over like sort of minimizing those like the risk there.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I know folks, and I even have like had a similar experience in like it's obviously accounting is a very different industry than like entertainment and like
Hmm.
audio visual, but I had a more like traditional job, like accounting job, and was just like I don't, I felt I was like reporting to someone and was like not working. I didn't have any say in like whose files I was working on, and like my coworkers and things. Like I don't know, there was just like more things out of my control.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, I think it's really cool to be able to just sort of take the like DIY approach and be like, well, I'm good at this, I like doing it. Why don't I start a business that like serves me in every regard, instead of, it's funny because now that I'm like saying this, it's almost like that the opposite feels more of the like quote unquote selling out, of just being like, well, just I'll just like slip onto this company's payroll and like
Yeah.
do whatever tasks they kind of like throw on my desk.
Yeah, and
Uh,
I feel like what you're saying though too, when you think about like, what we'll say, like, me and you have known each other for a long time. Like when you think of our trajectory as like people, like we've always gravitated towards the DIY approach to things anyways.
mhm.
So it like kind of it adds up that we would work for companies that are also in that same headspace, and give you that same like creative outlook and like
Mhm.
yeah.
And it's like I don't know, I feel like they're, even though a lot of that is intangible, you can like definitely feel it like
Mhm.
top down. Even if you don't have like a traditional like hierarchical like organization like layout,
Yeah.
like if like you can feel whether it's like conscious or subconscious, you can feel like what the people making the decisions are like prioritizing.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and so it's like one, stepping into that position that you're in now like gives you a lot of freedom to dictate those things, but then also like, it's an important place to be as like you're building a team and you're like instilling like it's just cool to have that sort of responsibility of like now you have the freedom of the kind of work you do, and also you're sort of like a steward of it and like
Yeah.
growing your team and like attracting people that are like of a similar mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so real. Like, especially in terms of like what, like I was saying earlier, like Texture House has like kind of grown and changed a bunch throughout the years, but like where we're at now is like we're realizing the importance to us individually as like why storytelling is so, like so important, and like how we're like kind of embodying that as a company of like how can we tell more stories even like audibly, like with the kind of work that we've been doing in the past like 6 months is like we're doing a lot more creative storytelling work, finding clients, and we're meeting want to like pay us to make things that is in that headspace. And I
Mm-hmm.
think by like being a business owner and like an entrepreneur is like you, unlike working for another company, is like what you're saying is like you are in control of the direction you're going into, and you're in control of when you want to pivot and go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think that's been a big joy, um, for me, especially in the past like month or two, as I've like, like earlier this week, or let me go back a little bit. Like earlier in my life, I always wanted to be a Foley sound design artist. Like since I was like 14 years old,
Mm-hmm.
watching the Oscars, I was like, I want to do like post sound work for film. And earlier this week, like half of my like on Monday and Tuesday, all I was doing was recording Foley footsteps and like sound effects. You know what I mean? Like there was a moment on Tuesday at like 3 o'clock where I was like, wow, I'm legitimately like living my dream.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's more work, and I still have more work down the line. Like I have stuff coming in the summer. So like and people are like not only recognizing, but I like open that beacon up that like this is the kind of work we want to do, and that work started coming because I started seeking it. So that's the joy of being an entrepreneur and a business owner is that you do have control of where you set the wind in your sails.
Mm-hmm. And even on like on a less personal level too, something that I enjoy about working for like this size company and like observing companies that are like your size is I feel like we're in the I mean, I suppose we're always in the throes of like I don't know, just like the general like labor practices and like work days and workforces sort of like shifting and like becoming a new thing.
Hmm.
And so it also is like there's a cool amount of responsibility in like being a business owner where you're like, I don't know, like how many jobs before this were you frustrated with like pay or treatment from superiors? Now you can be like, oh, I'm in that role. So like I can just lead by example now. You can
Correct.
sort of start to like undo all of the learned behaviors we have, all the like typical like hierarchical exchanges we have with like boss and employees.
Hmm.
Um, and those things really, there's obviously a plethora of ways that you can like address those and try to move the envelope forward. But I think that's you're in a unique position, like in
Yeah,
a
and I think
important one
like what you're saying too about like moving
too.
the envelope forward or like the direction you're going in. It's like these things are like before I was saying is like they take time. So like I know that like I want to pay my employees well. Like I want to have a living wage. That might mean that my team is smaller, but like every person on my team will get like a living wage and like significantly above minimum wage. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like
Totally.
that's something that really is important to me and that I was missing in a lot of the work that I was doing prior to doing this.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
that's one of the facets of like if we think of other, like the just sort of general like where wages are at now, it's like that's like a direct driver is like if you see like a larger company that's paying low, if enough smaller businesses keep like sort of pushing the envelope of keeping wages higher and workday just being more like sustainable and like safer and more accommodating,
Mhm.
that like people are going to stop going to like the bigger company for jobs. They're going to start looking for smaller ones, and then they're going to find themselves at like a deficit, and then hopefully start to sort of like change their best practices too.
Yeah, and hopefully I don't eat these words, but also at at the same time, like, as employees of a smaller company, you get to do more, like and I think there's a joy in, like, having multiple roles than just, like, one thing. Like, there's always growth in what you're doing, and you can always, like, and when I say growth, it's like individual limbs of growth. Like you get better at doing marketing, and you can get better at doing accounting at the same time. Like there's both and like you doing this show and also being an accountant. Like you probably wouldn't have in another company, you wouldn't have had these opportunities if it wasn't for working on such a small team.
Mm-hmm. So let's sort of shift into so this month is financial literacy month.
Mm-hmm.
So when you started your business, how where I don't know, like if you were you financially literate when you started the business?
I had ideas of financial literacy. I don't think I definitely didn't embody them. I wasn't they weren't in practice.
Totally.
And I think just having a business has helped me like on in my personal life of how to do finances.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been all the little things that I've learned of like how to maintain the books for Texture House that has like um, transferred over to my family life,
Mm-hmm.
and how I like budget on a monthly basis with my wife. Um,
Totally.
so definitely not. I think I'm a little bit more fortunate that Michelle Mitchell is my mom, so like she's kind of like she's always been telling me things, how to be financially literate my whole life. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying I listened to her, but she was definitely telling me.
No
So
advisor,
it's
no.
like, yeah, as I've gotten older, it's like tuning back into like those lessons that I learned when I was like
Mm-hmm.
25, versus where I'm at when I'm 30. So,
Totally.
um,
Can
yeah.
you think of like specific pain points that you had in like starting the business that like now that you and we'll talk more I guess about where you are now with financial literacy, but can you like were there particular stressors that you now sort of see in retrospect where you're like, oh, that was only stressful because I just didn't really have the like tools or the know-how of how to run a business?
I would probably say charging, like how to charge and like have the right percentage for operations and taxes and to pay myself. I would say that's probably where I've grown the most.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a lot of not just a financial literacy thing, but understanding like how money can help you move your business in the right direction. I think that's something that you and the team have, like really helped instill in me of like knowing how much I should be charging for things because I now know how much I'm paying for things and how much things actually cost. And that took really digging in and itemizing like all my expenses and um, all my like financial goals that I wanted to set for myself.
Mm-hmm.
That it took knowing um, to figure out what direction I needed to go in.
Because I feel like oftentimes folks start without, and this, you don't even have to have like hard specific financial goals to hit.
Hmm.
Um, but like people start sort of in like a net, like we were saying before, is like the business is sort of conceived by, I like doing this thing, and I suppose I could get money for it,
Yeah.
which is like a nice like little kernel to start at, but like not a strong enough foundation to be like starting to invest your time and your capital in something.
Yeah, and I think also like as an entrepreneur, sometimes you like as the beginning, for me at least, I stepped in from a still an employee mindset. So like I had to like shift that perspective of being an employee versus being a business owner. So like
Mm-hmm.
I was like charging people for like if I was just like a subcontractor or like a um just an employee for someone in the very beginning. And then I'd like finish a project and be like, oh no, I don't have any money.
Yeah, what it just worked 80 hours. What
Yeah,
happened?
yeah, exactly. So it was learning those parameters and boundaries that I need to like kind of set for myself in terms of like reaching financial goals and being able to pay my team. And like me saying this right now, I had a thing earlier this week. I was like, I'm still learning. Like I can't even say that I'm like I've reached the mountaintop or anything. Like I'm
Mhm.
still climbing that mountain trying to figure out like how much I should charge for things. But like every month, every meeting that we have like has helped push me forward in terms of my perspective and my growth and understanding like how much do things actually cost.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah.
And it's like, I mean, I think about the amount of folks that I come in contact with through doing this work of like a very like quick sort of like gut check. It's just like, oh, so what was quarter one like? Did you have a profit or a loss? And
Yeah.
like, you'd like, it's kind of surprising how many people like really don't even have that kind of information. And like, of course, you can always be learning more, but I feel like there's some pretty low lift things that you can start to like educate yourself on and implement in your business that like make a world of difference. Like even just knowing at a snapshot how to like interpret like a month or a quarter of financials can
Hmm.
like, that can sort of waterfall into like a series of events that have like a larger impact on like your yearly numbers, and then as an entrepreneur like your personal life and all the other things that you're like saving up for or like making revenue for.
Yeah, and I think having those, like, gut checks and that, like, being humble enough to, like, see where your finances are actually at, is so important, and, like, having those, like, come to Jesus moments with, like, your accounting, like, that's where you have actual growth, like, that's where I've had the biggest transformations in, like, the direction of the business of, like, knowing, like, "Okay, I'm in a deficit right now. So what things do I need to set in place to get above where I'm at, to, like, get out of the situation?" And I would say I'm still in those moments, I'm still trying to figure out how to, like, grow and like bring my team on more full time, like, right, that's where I'm at right now is like I'm trying to get projects and like clients that I can now like bring my team on, and like we're here, we have like our next year already set.
Mhm.
So like that's like the bigger goals that I have for myself at this point.
Totally. And I kind of want to also briefly go back to you're talking about like pricing and charging. I feel
Hmm.
like that's a particularly important concept with, I don't know, with like dealing with businesses and folks of like your size and of your like type of work.
Yeah.
Because like, we talked about how this, like, you start doing a business because you like found something you really enjoy and you're good at and people want to like pay you for,
Yeah.
because of the like degree of, I don't know, like it's still fun and just you're still passionate about it, and it gets very easy to like undercharge your work because I don't know. I feel like we often associate how much a job should be caught, like how we should charge for a job based on our like enjoyment doing it.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to be like, sure, it was a long day, but like I was doing Foley work all day.
Yeah, correct.
So like, the tendency is to sort of underestimate your time, your resources going into it because you like pulled some degree of enjoyment from it, and then you look back at a month of financials and you're like, it's not looking too good right now. Like, why
Hmm.
is that? It's like, well, and it's like it's awesome obviously to like to feel passionate about the work you're doing and enjoy doing it, but that those two things can exist at the same time. Like you can be adequately paid for your expertise and still and really enjoy like sort of like flexing that expertise.
Yeah, and I think something that you helped me with in the past, like this year, was like kind of tracking my hours, and I think that's something in the like roundtables that we've had, like that's been something that's come up a few times. It's like um, a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners don't track how many hours they're actually putting into the work they're doing, and I think that has really like highlighted how much time and effort I'm putting into things. And like that's the quality though. That's the high quality, product that I'm putting out. And that's the time is so important, and figuring
Mhm.
out those margins to know that what you should charge for something. Um,
Definitely. And I feel like we were sort of talking about just like broader like labor culture and like
mhm.
I don't know, like there's a certain nobility in like giving like throwing everything you have at like starting this business. And it's awesome and it's really beautiful you get to do it, but it's also like, you want to make it sustainable and you want to
Correct.
make it like a viable thing to do. So it just gets very easy to find yourself in this like entrepreneur role and like not worry about how much time you're taking, being like, oh, okay, I'll be the first to like forego pay to
Mhm.
like get these other things paid. And it's like, sure, a lot of those things like there's almost inevitably like an initial push if you're starting a business where like you are going to be putting in a lot of time and a lot of investment and stuff like that. But at the very least, you should be like tracking that
Yes,
so
correct.
that
And
you
I
have that data. Because like it's
yeah.
not to say that like there's a magic way to like not bust your butt and like get a business off the ground,
Mhm.
but it's important to be like aware of how much time and effort's going into that so that like one, if you want to keep growing and scaling, you can sort of recreate what you're doing without the initial like push.
Yeah.
And two, just so that you don't like sour yourself on what you're doing, because like even like the things you love doing, if you do them in a way that feels sort of like a dead end, it's like it can just muddy the waters pretty easily, you know.
Yeah, and I feel like something that we did too is like setting those milestones of like different goal like financial goals to hit. It's like right now this is what I'm going to charge so I can get these kind of like enough clients, so then like 6 months from now this is how much I'll charge. And, you know, a year from now this is how much I'll charge, you know? Like that
Mm-hmm.
has been like a big benefit for me. But also like what we did I think last year or even for the loan when we were getting ready to apply for the loan was like figuring out how much are my expenses, and now how much are taxes, and now how much do I need to be paid? And then like figuring out what for me, because we're like a services based job, it's like kind of an hourly wage or an
Mm-hmm.
hourly rate for clients. So like what is that hourly rate that I need to be charging to people? You know, we're like, okay, it's like $75 per hour, and this is how many hours we need to hit in a week. And then this is how many hours we need to hit in a month. You know, that was so transformative. Like that transformed my perspective of like, okay, so these are the kind of jobs I want to get. And these like we can do this many sound design jobs, and we can do this many production jobs, and then we can do this much post work. You know, like wide range.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and I guess that's like let's shift into talking about like the loan, and like we don't
Hmm.
have to talk about like specifics, of course, but I mean like that, at least from my perspective, was like a milestone of sorts of like getting you set up to sort of like take this next step
Yeah.
in growth. And I don't know, like imagine if you would have imagine having to like go through the process of like doing projections and applying for a loan, at the conception of this business. It's like
Could
folks are not inclined to be giving out money like
no.
just willy-nilly like that. So it's like that can be a really big turning point for a business, like securing capital. But it's like, how do you do that? You
Yeah.
have to have accurate records, and you have to be able to like back up the data that you're sending to these folks. Of like,
Hmm.
sure, anyone can be like, yeah, I project we're gonna do X amount in sales next year, and it's like, okay, well, like, what is the basis of that?
Yeah.
So it's like one that can lead to not even being able to secure funding to sort of like put yourself get to the next level, or two, like maybe you are still able to secure it, but if your projections aren't accurate, then you might find yourself in a position where like you've borrowed money and you can't afford to like pay the interest on that money or something
Yeah.
like that.
Correct. Correct.
So I feel like that is and it wasn't anything like incredibly intensive, if I remember, like applying for the loan, but still is like, they're looking for projections, and like if you're having a meeting with someone that's potentially going to loan you like thousands of dollars, if they ask you what your like what your overhead rate is or something like that, or like, oh, so like what percentage of sales is cost of goods sold, like
Yeah.
you can't just be like I don't know.
Correct. Yeah. I think in that time too was like me really like before I applied for the loan and I was like building up my forecast and all that stuff. That was me figuring out how much do these things cost? Like that how much what do I realistically think we can afford, you know, for a loan, or in like what kind of clients do we need to get to a point where we can pay for these loans or
Mhm.
for the loan. That was a big move. That was a big move. And I think after the fact, I think I did the funny thing is like I did all this work and I knew where I was at, where I needed to be like financially, but I don't think it set in until like I got the money and then I was like already in the trenches, like working towards it. And like 6 months later, I was like, oh, okay, it finally all clicked. It finally all like all that work that we did a year before like I came to this conclusion, um, it all made sense as a business owner, as like an entrepreneur, as like a creative. And that money and the work that we did skyrocketed my perspective and like where the kind of work that we're able to now get, which is kind of it's crazy. It's
Mhm.
insane.
That's awesome to hear. Yeah, it's just I don't know, like I think I was kind of alluding to this before, is like there is or maybe I think I'm thinking of a different conversation. Like there, you can get extremely like in the weeds,
Correct.
and like there's like some like intricate things that you learn, and like if you go to school for an accounting degree or something that like you might never have to actually use as a business owner. But I feel like there's so much like low lift stuff that like you really need to know if you're going to be like running a successful business. And like you said, it's like you kind of started with, I mean, obviously you had like a strong source in your life of like instilling these sorts of like lessons in you, but like you weren't like a financially minded person necessarily, but like you saw the opportunity that would help you like take this next step, like getting a loan, and you like found the tools to educate yourself. And then now we're also now at a point where we can look back and be like, oh, that was like a pretty pivotal part in Texture House being what it is now.
Correct.
And you being able to look back and be like, dang, I'm doing Foley right now. Like 14-year-old Tony would be like stoked about this.
Yeah, exactly. And I think just like learning, learning all that information, and taking the time. And I think really what getting the loan did was like it made me take time to really assess business and like get to the heart of like how to run a business. Um, and I think as an entrepreneur, that's something that we don't do enough of, especially when you're in the work. Especially when I think about, the hard thing for me too is like as a creative, like I have so many hours that I need to do to like just put things out, like to like mix. There are 20 hours of mixing that I have to do this week, and but on top of that, there's another 5 to 10 hours of like post, like not post, but like a back end business work that I need to do at the same time.
Yeah, which is
Which
like necessary to bring in that 20 hours of mixing.
Yeah, but like for example, is like before I applied for the loan, I wasn't putting those hours in.
Mhm.
I wasn't doing all that back end work. I was doing it on like maybe once every 2 weeks, but it wasn't as frequently as I do it now. So like at that time when we were applying for the loan, that was where I built those skills and that how to take space for business for the accounting side of things.
Mhm.
But also, I didn't understand like back to what you're saying is I didn't understand it back then, so I needed to put in that time and effort and like really talk with you, um, to figure out what do these numbers even mean.
Mhm.
To find out we were actually doing pretty good. And I think that's the funny thing is like every time I like look at the numbers, I'm like, oh, we're doing good, which has been a joy to find out every time you send me my P&L or every time like I look at my P&L, I'm like, oh, okay, cool, sweet.
Phew.
In terms of goals that I want to get to, we're not there yet, but like I think that's every business. Like that's anyone in like the starting of a business. Like it takes time and effort to get to, you know, having full-time employees and paying yourself like the wage that you need. Um, but each step is a little bit further. Each day I'm a little bit closer to those goals.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
at the same time, it's like I'm okay right now. Like that I think we don't give enough space for like the moments we're in like currently, and like where I'm at right now is like everything's good and everything's gravy. So like keep working, keep doing it, and like those things will come over time. And I think that's something I was definitely beating myself up about when I was applying for the loan because I was like, I should know this. I should already have known all these things, and
Totally.
um, it's fine to not know because like the not knowing is like the fuel to find out the information.
I feel like there's like um I don't know, there's like a certain level of like humility you kind of have to be like ready to have when doing these things. So like you said, it's like one, there is so much to learn, but there is like a lot of basic things that even someone that doesn't consider themselves to be like financially minded can like learn and like implement and inform their decisions. Um, oh dang it, what was the point I was going for right there? Dang it, what did I just say? What was the first thing I just said?
To be financially minded.
Mm, it'll come back to me. Let's just keep talking. That's funny. It was probably nothing if I don't have it now.
Hmm.
Dang. What do you? What's next for Texture House?
What's that like financially? My next goal is to, my year goal, I guess, for what
I
you
got it. I remember. I'm
you
sorry.
remembered? Okay, yeah, go.
It'll segue into that, but it was just like the humility aspect of like
Hmm.
I feel like people get sort of stuck in this like feedback loop of like, okay, they started a business and then they realize there's like X, Y, and Z things that they have to learn to like apply for a loan and receive funding.
Hmm.
And instead of just being like, I don't know, like I think that was a great example where you're like, you're mad at yourself for not knowing it, but you're like, okay, like what do I do in the face of that? Is just learn it now.
Yeah.
And like, you can't like undo what has already happened. But I feel like what I see a lot of people doing is they get sort of stuck in that rut of like they're mad at themselves for like not fully knowing ins and outs of like accounting or like starting a business. But they just like sort of double down and they keep like trying to trudge forward without actually like understanding that. And I feel like I've also worked with people where like, we've like I'll identify like some sort of like weird discrepancy in their books and be like, hey, like this really should be fixed before it becomes something bigger. And then people like just like pride can kind of get in the way and they would want to
Oh,
be
yeah.
like, no, like I'm the business owner, I know how to do this, it'll be fine. And then you know they're back in my inbox 8 months later and the mess is like even bigger.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like like it's like important to be able to be like, yes, I started this business because I'm a creative and I like doing this and I want to learn how to make it into like a viable thing to do, but I just don't know how to do that right now. And you have to be ready to like admit that to yourself and like just learn the basics, because again, even just understanding those basics can like really sort of like spring you forward. And then for the more in the weed stuff, you have people like myself or like your mom in your life or other teams you can like reach out to sort of like that their specialty is the in the weeds sort of topics that they can do the like heavier lifting stuff and support you in learning the like basic day-to-day like
Yeah, and I think there's something to say about that too, is like nothing is built in a void or in a vacuum. Like it takes a community to like get you to grow, you know. So like it was like not only your team, but the United Way who I applied to the loan through, like they were Molly Trueblood, who has left there. She's great. She really like you and her like really helped educate me on like how to apply for a loan, you know. Like I was like inquisitive enough to like ask the right questions. But also like, you know, nothing's built in the void, but also, something I've learned from production work is when you see a problem, like when you see something that could potentially be a problem, if you can get ahead of it before it becomes a problem, that is what makes you a pro. That it like having that foresight is what makes you a pro, especially in my industry of like post sound work or on production work. Is like if you see that like, oh, that fan or this fridge, it is a little loud, or like in the back of your head you're like, should we turn it off or should we do this? And like knowing to just like go with your gut and say like, no, I'm going to take the time and talk to the director and say like, maybe we should move this, or like maybe we
Mhm.
should change this. Like that is what, like listening to those instincts, like that is what has like transformed me into like a professional in my industry. And
Mhm.
being able to tune into that on the business side of things, of like seeing something that would potentially be a problem and being like, I'm going to like run full speed into this wall, and even if I like crush myself, like at least I'm trying, and like maybe someone will see me run into this wall and will have some advice along the way to help me like not, break a shoulder or something. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like whatever this metaphor that I'm trying to make is,
And
but
and like I mean back to the like the community mindset of like just being like we were kind of talking about earlier, there's like a certain nobility in like doing everything for a business,
Mhm.
but also like you specialize in what you specialize in. So like have the like I don't know, be able to like swallow that pride and just like, hey, I don't like I something is looking weird in my books and like I can't figure out what it is. So like let me go to a professional that knows that instead of like being headstrong and ignoring it and then, 6 months later being like, oh, this is now
Yeah,
like a catastrophic fix that I'm gonna have to like pay a lot of money to undo, or it's like inform my decision making in a way that's going to have like long term repercussions, when it's
right.
like really the solution would have just been like having the humility to like, hey, I don't know this, I'm willing to ask for help on this,
Yeah,
or I'm willing to like try to educate myself on this.
correct. Correct.
So I feel like there's, yeah, I don't know, there's a lot of like something I appreciate about like the way that we approach like working with business owners is like kind of thinking about the like I don't know, this is sort of a more like meta conversation about like being an entrepreneur than what I often see in like spaces like this. So
Hmm.
it's like I don't know, but although again, like your business is like you had a passion and you turned it into something, and so like all of the awesome positive traits about the business owner, like at least initially, start to like sort of take form in the business.
Hmm.
In the same way, all of the like like I guess for lack of a better word, like the shortcomings or the things that you don't know, those also can sort of start to like run rampant. So it's important to like
Yeah.
identify what you're good at, identify what you're not good at, and figure out how to like tackle those
Hmm.
instead
And
of just
finding people to step into the spaces, into
really.
those spaces to help you. Um, yeah, I feel like especially in my industry, is like there are so many people on a film set and so many specialties on a film set that there's a reason for it because they're good at doing that specific job. So like I think my environment has helped me understand that a little bit more and get deeper in that conversation. So like when it came to finances, it was a little bit easier for me to
Mhm,
be like, "Oh, okay, I don't really know how to do this. I should really like get someone to help me out."
mhm.
So
So I
yeah,
remember you talking about like color. You're like, oh yeah, like I have to like bring someone on to colorize this. I was like,
yeah,
what is that?
yeah.
like,
Color
like
the
that's a whole job
Mhm.
for someone.
That is a whole there are so many jobs, like, in this industry that, like, you would be shocked to know that, like, someone just, like, does footsteps. Like, someone in the Foley world, like, their whole job for, like, one film is just to, like, get all the footsteps.
Okay.
And then there's someone who's just doing all the gunshots, or there's someone who's just doing all the background sounds,
Mhm.
like, especially when you get on bigger projects, you understand why there are so many, like, specific jobs because, like, to do it all would take you a lifetime.
Yeah, and yeah, it's just like literally impossible.
Yeah.
And it's like I feel like that's a nice sort of not like bookend to all this, but it's like your role as an entrepreneur is like you have the obviously the skill set, but also you have like a vision for what you're trying to do,
Mhm.
and like you have to have the ability to like put that vision in front of like pride.
Yeah.
It's like and be able to like I want to work towards this, and like I now understand that the most effective way to do that is to like be asking for help in making that work.
Yeah, being humble and transparent with people instills growth. I feel like
Mhm.
that is the basis of like good soil to grow, you
Totally.
know. So yeah.
Sweet. Okay, so yeah, what is next for Texture House?
Next, I would like to do two more documentaries. I feel like this one doc that we just were on the verge of finishing has like really shown me that like we're good at it. And I want to do it on a even bigger level. Um, So I have like a little idea of a few ideas. I have a few ideas of like what that could look like and like what those projects would be. It's just a matter of me like reaching out to the peoples and the companies and seeing if that's something they're interested in. I think on a non-creative side, on a business side, I would like to bring. I would like to one pay myself more. That's always a goal. And then two, I want to bring Paul and Angel on as as a full-time employee.
Mhm.
If I can get to like bringing them on and paying myself more as a full-time employee in the next year, that would be my number one goal, outside of any creative work that we're doing. Because work and creative stuff that's gonna come. It's like setting myself up to know how to charge and like set myself up to get the kind of work that will get us to a financial place where like they're full-time employees and like I am a more sustainable full-time employee, you
Mhm.
know. So I think that's definitely my goal as of right now.
Awesome. Do you feel like if you were asked that question 2 years ago, someone said like, so like, what's the next like, what's next on the docket for Texture House? Would it have been a more ambiguous answer? You think?
Yeah, it would have. I don't know. Yeah, I think 2 years ago I would have said we want to do more. 2 years ago I was saying we want to do more post down work, um, and then we did it, and then it kind of kept growing from there. And then Angel came on, and then it like the vision completely changed and got bigger because the project got bigger and like the skills got bigger and the gear got bigger and better. Um, yeah, I think it in 2 years, I'll probably have a different I will 100% have a different, aspiration and goal, because we'll hopefully have hit the, it's this weird thing is where like you set these goals and you hit them, but before you even hit them, you've already set new goals. Like,
Mhm.
it's a vicious cycle. And I think another thing that like is my goal is to be more present and more in the moment, so I can appreciate moments like on Tuesday, like I'm actively trying to be more present and appreciate like where I'm at, because like I heard a really good quote from, I think it was Snoop Dogg, and he was talking about how like in the '90s when he was doing all of his albums and stuff, but like he was living the dream in those moments, and he had to take a step to like appreciate that like I'm in it. I can't I, like you can set the goals, but like if you spend all your time setting those goals, you're never in the moment appreciating like that you're there. So I'm trying to like again like humble myself and like be appreciative of like where I'm at and like this journey of like, because I'll never be almost 30 with the starting of my team and like these very beginning projects that really transformed us into like what we're going to turn into. So like there's something to say about like my first real week of doing Foley. Like I will always have this past Tuesday where I looked at my room and it was a mess and there was dirt everywhere and like there were clothes all over the place and like there was just one microphone in the center of the room and I was like, I'm done,
I made
So
it. I
I
did it.
I did it, So like that was a really pivotal moment, especially in terms of like getting me to the next thing. I know that I can do it. So yeah, I guess.
Awesome. Is there anything else you want to share, like about Texture House, or I guess like in the lens of in light of like Financial Literacy Month? Oh, what the heck? Where did that come from?
Whoa,
Did you do
that's
that?
that's our website. I think someone's in the background
Awesome.
doing magic.
Uh,
Um,
yeah, like let's. I was gonna say, do you have if there's nothing else on like sort of growth and financial literacy, then like maybe let's get some plugs. Like where, obviously, there's your website at the bottom.
mhm.
Where else can we find like things you've worked on, or how can we? Is there another way we could like contact you for potential work, or
I think going to our website's like the best place to see a lot of the stuff we're doing. It is definitely a year behind, but we're also in the middle of like 5 projects right now. So in the summer we will update our website, but right now we're just gonna like keep our heads down and do the work that we're doing. So
awesome?
but please, like if you resonate with the things that I'm saying, and or if you want to just like talk about business, or if you're interested in doing a company story, like reach out. My email and contact information is on the website. Uh, yeah, I think just something else I would say is just like keep growing, and like the same thing I was saying a few minutes ago is like take appreciation for the moment you're in, because like it's not forever and it's only now. So
Mm-hmm.
um, I I was I think I beat myself up for too many years, not appreciating now,
Mm-hmm.
like thinking that my future is going to be brighter. And it still might, it will probably be brighter, but like it's bright right now too. So like,
Totally.
bask in the sun, I guess.
Like I had to learn that there's not a destination at the end,
Correct. Correct.
which
Correct.
I was like, and that's like I think also like a largely a symptom of just being in like 20s of like, okay, well, like this is fine for now, but
Hmm.
like I'll get to this like pinnacle of adulthood or like pinnacle of like business or personal success,
Yeah.
and then you realize like, yeah, there's no ceiling for how much you can improve and grow, but also like it's still good where you are, so like
Hmm.
don't forget about that.
Correct.
Dang. Sweet.
Fire.
Thank you so much, Tony.
Thank you, Evan.
Always good to talk to you.
Yeah. Literally every time.
Every time. Okay, sweet. Well, I don't have anything else. Cool.
Check out the website. We got some cool stuff. I don't know.
Down there. I never
Yeah.
got to do that before. Hit the link down there.
Link
Actually,
below.
I don't know if it's a link or not. Type in the
Link
URL
over here,
below.
or here, or here, or here.
Here. Here. No. All right. Thank you, Tony, and thanks everyone that has been watching.
Yeah, for sure.
Goodbye.